The night was silent, but John felt something strange in the air. His small house was always quiet, yet tonight the silence felt heavy. He placed his bag on the table, removed his jacket, and walked down the hallway. The wooden floor made a soft sound under his shoes. But then he heard something else. Breathing, slow and nervous breathing, John froze. His heart began to beat faster. He was sure he had locked every door, closed every window, and left the house empty when he went to work. But now someone was inside. He moved carefully, step by step, listening to the faint sound of breath that came from his bedroom. The shadows stretched long across the wall, and each step made him more afraid. His hand trembled as he reached for the door handle. The breath grew louder, closer, almost as if someone was hiding under his bed. With one sudden push, he opened the door. The room was dim. Only the moonlight touched the floor through the window, and there on his bed, curled up like a child, was a figure. Not human, not completely human. A girl, fragile, with pale blue skin and silver eyes. She looked young, but her face showed exhaustion, hunger, and fear. Her hands clutched the blanket tightly as if it was the last thing she owned. John's mouth went dry. His mind raced. Who was she? How did she get inside his locked home? The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide with terror. I am sorry, she whispered, her voice weak. She was shaking, her body trembling with cold. John stepped back, unsure if he should call the police or run out of the house. But his eyes caught something familiar, the ragged cleaning cloth on the chair, the small bucket by the corner. And then he remembered, earlier that day, he had hired her. She was standing outside the store, dirty, hungry, looking lost. People walked past her like she was invisible. John had almost ignored her too, but her eyes stopped him. She asked for work, any work, even just cleaning floors. Her voice was soft, broken, but filled with desperation. So John gave her a few coins and told her to clean his house. She worked quietly, carefully, without a single complaint. When she left in the evening, he thought he would never see her again. And now, here she was, in his bed. "Why are you here?" John asked, his voice firm but low. The girl lowered her head. "I had nowhere to go." Her words stabbed the air with silence. John frowned. "That does not give you the right to enter my house." Tears welled in her strange silver eyes, and she whispered, "Please, only one night. I will leave tomorrow." Her thin hand showed scars, long marks that told stories of suffering. Her clothes were torn, her feet bare, and John realized she had been wandering the streets for a long time. She was not just a poor stranger. She was something more, something not of this world. He remembered the news, the whispers in the city. Some aliens had been seen on Earth, survivors of lost worlds, but humans did not trust them. Many saw them as dangerous. John swallowed hard, trying to decide. She was an alien, yes, but right now she looked more like a lost child than a threat. The clock ticked loudly, filling the silence. John sighed and finally said, "One night, only one night." Her face lifted slightly, a flicker of relief in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, pulling the blanket closer around her. John turned to leave, but then something outside caught his attention. Through the window, he noticed a shadow move near the street, a black shape, tall, standing still as if watching the house. He blinked, but when he looked again, it was gone. Was someone following her? Was someone hunting her? He shut the curtains quickly and locked the window. For the first time, he felt his own house was no longer safe. He returned to the doorway. The girl still curled up on the bed. She had already closed her eyes, but her face showed fear even in sleep. John leaned against the wall, confused, angry, yet strangely protective. He had only paid her to clean his house. He had not expected to find her here, and he certainly had not expected danger to follow her. The night grew darker, the silence heavier. John sat in the living room, unable to rest. Every sound outside made him alert. Every creak in the house made him look back. He knew tomorrow his life would not be the same. For the first time in years, someone else was under his roof, and that someone was not even human. But deep inside, John felt something strange. Not just fear, not just anger. Something else. An emotion he had not felt since his wife's death. A sense that this fragile, lost creature in his bed might change everything. And as the clock struck midnight, the story of John and the alien girl truly began. The morning light slipped through the curtains, touching John's tired face. He had not slept much. His mind was heavy with questions. The image of the alien girl lying in his bed stayed with him all night. Her silver eyes, her scars, her trembling hands, he could not forget. When John entered the room, she was already awake. She sat quietly on the edge of the bed, her eyes lowered. The blanket still wrapped around her thin shoulders. She looked like someone afraid of being thrown back into the cold streets. For a moment, John only watched her, not knowing what to say. "You should leave," he finally said, his voice rough. The girl looked up quickly, panic flashing across her face. "Please, not yet," she whispered. "I will work. I will clean. I will do anything. Just don't send me away." Her words were soft but desperate, carrying the weight of someone who had been rejected too many times. John sighed, rubbing his forehead. He did not trust her, not fully, but something inside him told him she was not dangerous, only broken. Still, he needed answers. "What's your name?" he asked. Her lips moved slowly before the word escaped. "Nira." "And where are you from?" Her eyes flickered, as if the truth carried too much pain. "A place that no longer exists," she said quietly. "My world is gone." The room grew heavy with silence. John studied her, wondering if she was lying or telling the truth, but the sadness in her voice felt real. Her hands shook slightly as she clutched the blanket tighter. "People here. They don't want us," Nira whispered. "We are not trusted, not welcome, not safe." John understood the last part all too well. He had seen it. Humans turning their backs on the strange newcomers, whispers of alien beggars in the alleys, stories of them being chased, beaten, or worse. And now one of them was in his house asking for mercy. "I can't keep you here forever," John said firmly. "I know," Nira replied, lowering her head. "Only for a little while, until I find where I belong." Her voice carried a tremor, yet behind it there was strength, a small flame refusing to die. After a long pause, John finally spoke. "Fine," he said. "But if you stay, you work. No stealing, no lies, no secrets." Her eyes widened with relief, almost shining like silver stars. "I promise," she said quickly, her voice breaking with emotion. It was not just a deal. It was survival. To her, his words were not simple rules, they were hope. Nira moved into the kitchen, her thin hands reaching for a cloth. She began wiping the table, sweeping the floor, moving silently like a shadow. Every movement careful, almost too careful, as if afraid she might break something. John watched her work, and for the first time, he noticed something else. Her scars were not random. They looked like burns, cuts, marks from restraints. She had suffered more than he could imagine. "Who hurt you?" John asked without thinking. Nira froze, her shoulders tense. For a moment she said nothing, then whispered, "People I trusted. When I first came here, they promised safety, but gave only pain." Her hands shook, the cloth slipping from her fingers. John wanted to ask more, but the fear in her voice told him not to. Instead, he turned to the window. And there it was again, a shadow outside, a black car parked too long on the street. His stomach tightened. It was not the first time. He had seen it. Someone was watching. Someone new. John pulled the curtain shut quickly, his jaw tense. "Do you know them?" he asked sharply. Nira's face went pale, her silver eyes wide with fear. "They are hunters," she whispered, her voice shaking. "They follow us. They take us. And we never come back." The words sent a chill down John's spine. This was no longer about charity, no longer about kindness. By letting her stay, he had stepped into something dangerous. But when he looked at her face, fragile and terrified, he knew he could not turn back. "You need to stay hidden," John said, his voice low but firm. Nira nodded quickly, clutching the cloth in her hand like a weapon, though it was nothing. Her breath came fast, her whole body trembling. Yet in her eyes he saw a flicker of trust. She believed him. She was trusting a human, something she swore she would never do again. That night, as John locked every door and window, the house felt different. Not just a home, but a secret place carrying danger and hope at the same time. He sat in the living room, the shadows deep around him. Nira curled up quietly in the corner, too tired to speak. John realized the fragile deal he had made was more than just a promise. It was a chain, pulling him into a story far bigger than himself, and somewhere outside, in the darkness, the hunters were waiting, watching, patient, ready to strike. The next morning, John woke with a strange heaviness in his chest. The house was quiet but not empty. He could hear soft sounds from the kitchen, dishes moving, water running, and the faint hum of a voice. It was Nira, singing in a low, broken tune, a song that did not belong to Earth. John walked in slowly, and for a moment he only watched her. She was cleaning the table again, moving carefully as if every surface mattered. But her eyes looked distant, lost in memories. When she noticed him, she quickly stopped the song and lowered her head. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should not make noise. John shook his head. It's fine, he said quietly. He sat down, and after a long pause, he asked the question that had been burning in his mind since yesterday. What happened to you, Nira? She froze, her hands tightening around the cloth. Her silver eyes flickered with fear but also with pain too deep to hide. For a long time she said nothing. Then finally, her voice broke the silence. You really want to know? John nodded, his face calm but his heart tense. Yes, he said. I need to understand. Nira sat across from him, her thin fingers trembling against the table. My world was once full of light, she began slowly. Oceans that glowed, skies filled, with twin suns and families who never left each other. Her eyes shimmered as she spoke, the memory both beautiful and sharp. But one day the sky burned, she whispered, her voice cracking. They came, machines, weapons, fire, everything destroyed in hours. Her lips trembled. I lost them all. My mother, my father, my brother, all gone in one night. John sat silently, his chest tightening. He wanted to reach out, but he stayed still, letting her speak. I escaped, Nira continued. With others, we found ships, broken ships. We came here to Earth, thinking maybe humans would help. She gave a bitter laugh, soft but painful. But help never came, only fear, only anger, only betrayal. John frowned. Betrayal? Nira's voice grew softer, her body shaking as the memory returned. When we first landed, some humans welcomed us, gave us food, gave us shelter, but it was a lie. Her eyes filled with tears. They sold us, traded us, gave us to hunters who experiment, who hurt us, who make us disappear. She touched the scars on her arms. These are from them. John's hands clenched on the table, anger rising inside him. He had always thought humans were cruel to outsiders, but hearing it from her lips made it real. You trusted them, he said quietly. Yes, she whispered. And I paid with pain. For a moment, silence filled the room again, only the ticking of the clock and the sound of Nira's uneven breathing. Then she looked up at him, her eyes sharp. That is why I cannot trust humans, not truly, but you. Her words stopped, her lips trembling. You are different. John felt the weight of her gaze. He looked away, unsure how to carry such words. He was not a hero, not a savior, just a lonely man who had lost his wife years ago. But now this alien girl saw something in him, something he was not sure he even had. Before he could answer, Nira's eyes drifted to the shelf nearby. She stood slowly, reached out, and picked up a photo frame. Inside was the picture of John's late wife. Smiling under a tree, Nira's face froze. Her lips parted in shock. Her silver eyes widened and she whispered a word in her own language. Too soft for John to understand, John's heart jumped. You know her? he asked quickly. Neera's hands shook as she held the frame tighter. I don't know, she whispered. But this place, this tree. I have seen it before, long ago. Her voice was filled with confusion, with fear, and something else. A secret hidden deep inside. John felt a chill run down his spine. His wife had been gone for years, yet this alien girl from a destroyed world recognized something about her. It made no sense, but the look on Neera's face told him she was not lying. There was a connection, one he did not yet understand. He reached out and gently took the photo from her trembling hands. "Tell me," he demanded, his voice firm. "What do you know about her?" Neera shook her head quickly, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I don't know," she said, her voice breaking. "I only remember the tree, the light, and a woman who looked kind. She helped us once." John's world tilted. Could his wife, his beloved wife, have crossed paths with these aliens before? Had she kept a secret from him all these years? Neera's tears fell freely now, her whole body trembling. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I should not have touched it." John stared at her, his mind a storm of questions. The past, he thought. He knew suddenly felt broken, and in that broken past Neera was a missing piece. Outside, a car engine started. The sound low but sharp. John rushed to the window, pulling the curtain slightly aside. The same black car was there again, waiting, watching. His chest tightened. Whoever they were, they knew more than he did. And now, both his past and his future were tangled with this fragile alien girl. The deal he had made yesterday was no longer simple. It was a chain pulling him deeper into a truth he was not ready to face. And the broken past was only beginning to open. The evening came too quickly, and John felt the air grow heavier around his small house. All day his thoughts circled the same questions. Why did Neera recognize the photo of his wife? What secret was buried in his past that connected him to her people? And most of all, why was that black car still outside? He sat near the window, watching the street through a tiny gap in the curtain. The car had not moved for hours. Its windows, dark, its engine silent. It was like a shadow made of metal, waiting, patient. Neera sat in the corner of the room, hugging her knees, her silver eyes following his face. She did not need to look outside to know what he was seeing. "They won't." "Stop," she whispered, her voice trembling. John turned. "Who are they?" Her lips pressed tight, fear flickering across her face. "They are hunters," she said. "They track people like me. They take us and we never return." Her words felt sharp, like knives in the air. John's hands clenched, anger building. "Inside? You mean they're watching this house, waiting to take you?" Neera nodded slowly. "Yes, and maybe you too now." The idea cut through John like cold steel. He had lived alone for years, safe in his silence, but now danger had followed him home. And yet when he looked at Neera, fragile, scared, but alive, he knew he could not turn her away. The night grew darker, the street empty. Shadows stretched long across the walls inside. John locked the doors, checked the windows, made sure every light was off. Still, the feeling of being watched never left. Every creak of the house made his pulse jump. Every gust of wind against the glass felt like a warning. At midnight the sound came. Glass breaking, sharp and violent. John leapt to his feet, his heart racing. Neera gasped, her body shaking as she clutched the blanket tighter. The sound came again. Footsteps, heavy and sure. Entering through the back door, someone was inside. John grabbed the iron rod he kept near the shelf. His hands trembling but firm, he motioned for Neera to stay hidden, pointing toward the closet. Her eyes filled with terror, but she obeyed, slipping into the shadows. John stood in the hallway, listening. The intruders moved with purpose. Slow, but steady, as if they knew the layout of his house. "Search everywhere," a deep voice whispered. "They can't hide for long." Another answered. John's chest tightened. There were at least two of them, maybe more. Their steps came closer, the wooden floor creaking under their boots. The first shadow appeared at the end of the hallway, tall and broad. John gripped the rod tighter, his breath shallow. The man moved forward, his face hidden behind a mask, his hands gloved. John stepped out quickly, swinging the rod with all his strength. The metal hit the man's arm, and he cried out, stumbling back. But another figure rushed in from the side, grabbing John's shoulder. John struggled, twisting free, his heart pounding. "Where is she?" the masked man hissed. John's mind raced. If they found Nira, it would be the end. "She's not here," he spat, forcing his voice strong, but his words did not fool them. The second man pushed forward, searching the rooms. John swung the rod again, desperate, his arms burning with effort. The fight was messy, clumsy, but filled with raw will. For the first time in years, John fought not for himself, but for someone else. Nira heard the struggle, her body trembling in the dark closet. Tears streamed down her face as she covered her mouth. She wanted to help, but fear chained her in place. Her scars burned as if the past was alive again. Every sound of John's fight reminded her of the humans who once betrayed her. But now one human was fighting to protect her. Her heart ached, torn between fear and hope. The intruders shoved John against the wall, the rod slipping from his hands. His breath left him in a painful gasp. One man leaned close, his masked eyes cold. "She's ours, old man. Step aside and maybe you live." But John's jaw tightened, his voice low and fierce. "You'll take her over my dead body." Before they could answer, a sound outside made them freeze. Sirens in the distance. The hunters exchanged a quick glance, then pulled back. "We'll be back," one hissed, shoving John hard before. Retreating through the broken door, the sound of their boots faded, the black car roaring to life. Then silence again. John collapsed to the floor, his chest heaving, his body shaking with pain and rage. Nira rushed out from the closet, her eyes wide with horror. She dropped to her knees beside him, her thin hands trembling as she touched his arm. "I am sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They came for me, and now you are in danger too." John looked at her, his breath heavy but his eyes sharp. "You don't have to be sorry," he said slowly. "You just have to tell me the truth, all of it." Nira's silver eyes filled with tears, her voice barely a whisper. "The truth will break you," she said. "But if you still want it, I will tell." And as the house stood broken, glass shattered, shadows lingering, John realized there was no turning back. The danger was real. The hunters were coming. And the truth, whatever it was, would change everything. The night after the attack was heavy with silence. Broken glass still glittered on the floor, a cold reminder that strangers had walked inside their lives. John worked quietly, covering the window with wooden boards, his hands rough and tired. Every sound of the hammer echoed through the dark house like a warning. Nira sat close by, her arms wrapped around her knees, her silver eyes following him. She had never felt smaller, more like a burden than a guest. "Why didn't you give me to them?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. John paused, the hammer frozen midair. He turned slowly, his face hard, but his eyes burning with something deep. "Because I don't throw people to wolves," he said. Nira lowered her gaze, tears building. At the corners of her eyes, no one had ever risked anything for her before, not after she lost her world. Humans had either ignored her or hurt her. Until now, John placed the hammer down and sat across from her. "You need to understand," he said quietly. "They will come again, and next time I might not be enough." His words were sharp, but his voice carried something else. Worry, not anger. Nira's hands tightened against her knees. "I don't want you to suffer because of me," she whispered. John shook his head, leaning back against the wall. "I've been suffering alone for years," he said. "Maybe protecting. Someone gives me a reason again." For a long moment, silence hung between them. Then Nira spoke, her voice soft but steady. "You asked for the truth." John's chest tightened. "Yes," he said. "I need it. All of it." Her silver eyes met his, glowing faintly in the dim light. "The hunters," she began. "They are not just chasing me, they are chasing everyone like me. We are survivors, and they are paid to erase us." John frowned. "Paid by who?" Her lips trembled. "Some humans. Some powerful people, they believe we are dangerous, that our kind must be controlled or destroyed. She swallowed hard. And your wife? She knew the truth long before you did. John's heart stopped, his throat dry. What are you saying? Nira looked at him with sorrow. She was kind. She helped us once. She gave food, gave shelter. When we first came, she told us to stay hidden, but she also told us to keep hope. Her voice cracked. If not for her, I would have died long ago. John's hands shook as he held the photo frame in his memory. His wife, gone for years, yet still shaping this story he was trapped in. Had she lived a double life? Had she hidden this truth from him? You're telling me my wife saved you, he said slowly, almost disbelieving. Nira nodded, her tears glistening in the faint light. She saved many of us, she whispered. But it made enemies. And when she died, hope died too. John closed his eyes, his chest burning with grief and anger. He had spent years mourning her absence, never knowing she had carried a secret so heavy. Now that secret had landed in his house, asking for his protection, his trust in Nira wavered, yet her words matched the fear he had seen in her eyes, the scars on her body. She was not lying. But could he truly believe everything? That night they hid together in the living room, the doors locked, the curtains closed tight. Nira sat close to him, though fear kept her body tense. Her silver eyes reflected the faint light of the lamp, watching every shadow as if it might move. John kept the iron rod near him, his body aching from the fight but his spirit unwilling to sleep. For hours the silence stretched, broken only by the ticking clock and their shallow breaths. At one point Nira whispered, I don't deserve this, your kindness, your trust. John turned to her, his voice steady. You don't get to decide. That I do. Her lips parted, her chest rising with unspoken words. And for the first time a fragile smile touched her face, a smile filled with pain, but also with something new. Hope. Yet outside, the danger had not left. The black car returned near dawn, its engine rumbling low. John saw it from the window, his fists tightening. They were watching, waiting, testing him, testing her. Trust was fragile, but so was time. John sat back down beside Nira, his voice low. They will come again, and when they do, we need to be ready. Her silver eyes met his, and for a moment she did not see a lonely human or a broken widower. She saw something else, an ally, maybe even a protector. And in that fragile bond, trust was tested. As the first light of morning touched the sky, John realized his life was no longer his own. It was tied to hers now, to her broken past and to the enemies who hunted her. He could still walk away, abandon her, return to his silent life. But when he looked at her trembling hands and remembered his wife's hidden kindness, he knew he never would. The trust between them was not just tested, it was sealed, and outside, danger sharpened its claws, waiting for the moment to strike. Again the days passed, but peace never returned to John's house. Every night he checked the windows. Every morning he looked for the black car. The hunters had not broken in again, but their presence lingered. The silence outside was too heavy, too controlled, like a trap waiting to close. Inside, John and Nira spoke little. She cleaned, cooked, stayed quiet, but her silver eyes always carried fear. At night, she sometimes woke with cries too soft to be screams. John would sit awake, watching her, wondering how long before the hunters returned. Yet beneath the fear, something else grew. Trust, fragile but real. One evening, John found Nira standing in front of the bookshelf. She held the photo of his wife again, her thin hands trembling. Her eyes shimmered as if staring into another world. Why do you keep looking at her? John asked quietly. Nira turned slowly, her voice shaking. Because she is not only your wife, she is part of my story too. John's breath caught, his body stiff. What do you mean? Nira walked closer, clutching the frame like it was sacred. Years ago, before she died, she came to us, not once, but many times. She knew about us. She helped us hide. She brought food, medicine, and hope. Her lips trembled. She told us humans could be kind. She told us not to give up. She was the only reason some of us survived. John's mind spun. He remembered his wife, her late nights, her quiet trips, the excuses she gave for being gone. He had never questioned her, never doubted her, but now it was clear. She had been hiding something from him. Something bigger than their marriage, bigger than his small world. She never told me, John whispered, his voice breaking. Neera's silver eyes softened. She wanted to protect you. If you knew, you would have been in danger too. Her words cut deep. All these years John had mourned his wife, never knowing she had carried a secret life. She had been part of a war he never saw, and he had been blind. Neera set the photo down gently, her eyes wet with tears. There is more, she whispered. Your wife, she was searching for someone. John's heart pounded. Who? Neera's lips trembled. My family, the word struck him like thunder. He leaned forward, his voice sharp. Your family? How could she know them? Neera's voice broke. Because she met them before me. She promised to help them find safety. But when the hunters came, everything burned. I never saw them again. Her tears fell, her whole body shaking. I thought they were gone, but maybe she knew something I don't. John's chest tightened. His wife, his beloved, had not only saved strangers, she had carried their fight into her own life. She had risked everything, even her marriage, to protect them. And now, years later, that fight had fallen into his hands. The house felt smaller, heavier, as if the walls carried secrets too. John walked to the window, staring into the dark street. The black car was gone, tonight, but that did not comfort him. If Neera was right, the hunters were not just after her. They were after everything his wife had once tried to protect. He turned back to Neera, his voice steady though his heart shook. Why are they after you? What makes you so important? Neera swallowed hard, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the lamplight. Because I carry memory, not just my own, but my people's, she whispered. We have ways of passing memories, keeping them alive inside. My family gave me theirs before they died. I hold their knowledge, their truth. John stared at her, his breath shallow. So you carry the past of an entire people? Yes, she said. And if the hunters take me, it dies with me. All of it. The weight of her words pressed down on him. This was not just about hiding her in his house. This was about history, survival, truth itself. And his wife had known, had fought for it, had given her life in the shadow of this secret. For a long moment, neither spoke. The ticking of the clock was the only sound. Finally, Neera whispered, Do you still trust me? John looked at her, his jaw tight, his eyes heavy with pain. I don't know what to believe, he admitted. But I know one thing. I can't let them take you. Neera's eyes filled with tears, but this time they carried light. You are like her, she whispered. You choose to fight even when the world says don't. That night, as John sat with the iron rod beside him and Neera curled in the corner, the truth burned inside him. His wife had carried a secret war, and now it belonged to him. The hunters would return stronger, more determined. But John was no longer just a lonely man with a broken heart. He was a keeper of truth, and he would fight for it. Outside, the shadows stretched long across the empty street. The danger was not gone. It was only waiting. And with each passing hour, the line between past and future blurred. The truth had been revealed, and with it came a choice, to surrender to fear or to fight for something greater than himself. The night was darker than usual, heavy clouds covering the moon. John stood near the window staring into the street. His heart told him what his eyes already knew. The hunters were coming. The silence outside was not peace, it was the pause before the storm. Neera sat close to the fireplace, her silver eyes reflecting the faint glow. She looked small, fragile, but John knew better now. She carried inside her the memories of her people, the truth of a world destroyed, and because of that she was a target. The hunters wanted to erase her, and with her, erase everything she carried. Suddenly the sound came. Engines, 3 of them. Rolling down the street slow and sure. Black cars, their headlights off, their presence like wolves circling prey. John's chest tightened, his grip on the iron rod firm. Neera's body trembled, her breath uneven. "They've come," she whispered, her voice breaking. The first door broke before John could speak. A violent crash, wood splintering, shadows pouring inside. Masked men, tall and armed, their boots heavy against the floor. John pulled Neera behind him, his heart pounding so loud he could hardly hear. "Run through the back if I fall," he said sharply. Neera shook her head, tears running down her face. "No, not without you." The hunters spread out, their voices cold. "Give her to us and you live," one of them said, John's jaw clenched, anger rising like fire. "You'll have to kill me first," he answered. The men moved forward, and the fight began. John swung the iron rod with all his strength. The first man stumbled back, but another grabbed John's arm. Pain shot through his shoulder as they wrestled. Neera cried out, her fear twisting into courage. She grabbed a broken piece of wood and struck one of the hunters. It barely slowed him, but it gave John a moment to push free. The house filled with chaos, shouts, crashes, footsteps. The hunters were many, and John was only one man. But he fought like someone with nothing left to lose. His wife had kept secrets, but her kindness had lived on in this alien girl. He would not let that die, not tonight. One of the hunters cornered Neera, his gloved hand reaching for her arm. Her silver eyes glowed with terror. John lunged, slamming into the man with raw force. They fell hard, the iron rod crashing against the mask until it cracked. The hunter's face was revealed, cold, human, eyes empty of mercy. It was not aliens. Hunting Neera, it was humans, paid to erase what they feared. The sight burned John's chest with rage. "You're destroying what you don't understand," he spat. The man sneered, "We're saving humanity." But before he could strike again, Neera's voice cut through the chaos. "No, humanity is not saved by hate," she cried. Her voice shook, but it carried strength. John saw it, the fire of survival, the hope his wife had once spoken of. The hunters hesitated, just for a breath. And in that breath, John made his choice. He stood tall, his voice deep and unshaken. "You want her, you go through me, and I'll fight until my last breath." The words were not just defiance, they were a vow that echoed through the broken walls. The hunters pressed forward, but sirens rose in the distance. Red and blue lights flickered faintly across the dark street. The noise forced the hunters to retreat, pulling back quickly. "This isn't over," one hissed before disappearing into the night. The house fell into silence again, broken glass and heavy breaths the only sound. John collapsed against the wall, his body aching, his chest on fire. Neera crawled to him, her thin hands trembling as she touched his arm. "You could have given me to them," she whispered, tears falling. John looked at her, his voice rough but certain. "I told you I don't throw people to wolves," Neera sobbed, her silver eyes glowing like stars through the tears. "You are not like the others, you are what she believed humans could be." John's heart tightened, his wife's memory pressing against his chest. For the first time, he did not feel alone. He had lost his wife, but her kindness lived on, carried forward by this fragile alien girl. The sirens grew closer, neighbors waking, lights flickering, on. But John knew the hunters would return. This was not the end, only the beginning. He looked at Neera, her face filled with both fear and hope. "They'll keep coming," he said, his voice low. Neera nodded, her lips trembling. "Yes, they will never stop hunting us." John tightened his grip on the iron rod, his eyes steady. "Then let them come. They'll learn what it means to fight a human who refuses to give up." The night grew quiet again. But inside the broken house, a choice had been made. John was no longer a man living in silence, no longer just a widower lost in grief. He was something more, a protector, a fighter, a part of a story bigger than himself. And as Nira leaned against him, fragile but alive, John realized the truth. This was not just her fight anymore, it was theirs. Together, they would face the darkness. Together, they would carry the hope his wife had once believed in. And together, they would prove that humanity was worth trusting.